In 2009, the presidency deployed a National Planning Commission to work on the country's strategy ahead of the then new and now incumbent Jacob Zuma government. Led by the former Finance Minister Trevor Manuel, part of the NPC's mandate was to provide a framework for economic growth.
When we started in the National Planning Commission, I posted a whole lot of countries and their stories on the wall, and I said, which country do we want to be like? Do we want to be like Korea, which is a middle-income country that managed to become a high-income country? Do we want to be like Malaysia, Indonesia? And I posted Nigeria. Now, Nigeria's story is that, if I remember, they doubled GDP over a decade and poverty doubled.
At the end of its tasks in November that year, the NPC released a diagnostic report confirming some of the country's ills. The report made promises to cut unemployment by half in 2014, as well as poverty and inequality. But so far, little has changed 5 years later. Unemployment is currently sitting at 25.2% in 2014 compared to 24.3% in 2009.
But rightly, you're looking at what's happened since 2009 and even before. So there's long been, actually since 2004, a commitment to halving unemployment. And when I say halving, I don't mean to have it, I mean to reduce it by 50%, of course. And many of the things we've just spoken about, there are things we call binding constraints. If you don't have enough energy and water, you will simply not have investments being approved. The quality of education output, what's great is that we have many more matrics that somehow can't be accommodated in higher education now, or in further education. Kind of a good problem to have. We didn't have enough graduates before from high school, now we have too many. So that is kind of a good thing, but the reality is we're not putting enough people through, we're not enabling people to get their first work experience and an understanding of the workplace. We still know that people live very far from work opportunities.
Following the NPC, the National Development Plan was born to remedy its findings. The NDP is one of the most mentioned documents in the country's political speeches. One of its firm objectives is to grow the economy by more than 5% annually.
The growth rate will be capped to some extent by things like an energy constraint. For the reasons that I mentioned, investments can't get approved, therefore it doesn't move forward. If it does get resolved, however, then we could move at a faster pace. So the NDP says we'd like to see an average of about 5% GDP growth each year. That's an aspiration. Now, some might say it's not realistic, but the reality is we've got to reach up. If we want to resolve the challenges in this country, 5% growth is not unrealistic unless we accept the situation we're in. If we accept the status quo, then we're going to be continuing to see probably 2% growth.
South Africa's economy has instead shrunk by 0.6% in the first quarter of 2014. Mining is being blamed for this contraction after workers downed tools 4 months ago. While mine workers are demanding a better pay against what they call slaving for peanuts, some rainbow nationals are still struggling to find jobs and a better life.
The key challenge we're having right now in terms of a cap on growth is that we know we're energy constrained. If we had been growing at a reasonable pace, I can tell you we would have had blackouts, which is what they are, whatever we want to call it, but they're blackouts. We would have had them in spades. So the only reason we're not feeling it is because the economy is not growing very fast. And it's not just an issue for the mining industry, it's an issue for the property sector, accommodation and hotels, manufacturing. You just can't approve big investments unless you can guarantee the energy and in some sectors water. I think the key thing is not to have to raise new things. There are essential things that need to be done. The first in the mining industry and across the economy is we need to restore labor relations. And that means a commitment to rule of law, strengthening the institutions. Insofar as there are new unions and organizations that are emerging, we really need to look at how we're incorporating new voices. So we've got to find a way of ensuring that all South Africans can achieve a decent standard of living.
Once Africa's largest economy and partially surviving the 2008 global crisis, South Africa is now near a recession, according to some analysts. Perhaps it's now time to put the NDP into action as it remains unimplemented or just scrap it all together and adopt something else. I'm Makwenda Manamela reporting for Business Day and Financial Mail.